I am specifically in Ripple as an organization are really focused on money market funds and more specifically repo use case around money market funds, so intraday repo. I think the end state would be an intraday repo facility across a number of these financial institutions globally because that market is trillions of dollars. It's a really huge market. And I think we have a pretty good right to play there because you don't need a ton of programmability or conditions. It's basically just settlement. But I expect the hockey stick growth in tokenized assets has come. We've gone from if you look at the XRP Ledger specifically, I think we had 50 million in RWAs technically January last year. We're now at 5.1 billion, I think, roughly. That's 100x growth in a year. That is extremely fast. And so I expect that 100x growth to continue at this trajectory. It's going to get even bigger, 100x on the 5 billion easily, and the same across the wider industry. And that's insane to get your mind around and think about and be a team committing to that and seeing this growth trajectory.
Hey and welcome everyone to Krippenreiter TV, our weekly series on Monday, hosted by me, Krippenreiter, and my regular co-host Vet. Today we welcome Luke Judges to the show. Luke is Global Partner Success Lead and Director of Ripple in Dubai, where he leads strategic partnerships, drives ecosystem growth focused on maximizing tokenization and utilization of the XRP Ledger. In his early days before joining Ripple, he was more deeply connected to the Solana ecosystem, so not the enemy, but we are all friends right now. Most recently, I would say you are very focused on helping institutional partners to tokenize real-world assets on XRPL, so we are definitely winning here. For everyone listening today, make sure to like the video in case you want to see more from Ripple on the show. Thrilled to have you here today, Luke, to hear about some more details on how the XRPL progresses in terms of tokenization, obviously, and also Ripple products integration. Last time I checked, the XRPL ranked 4th, so that's pretty exciting, right?
Yeah, I mean, 4th's okay. No one wakes up in the morning and looks for 4th, but I think the job's not finished till we're number 1, right? And I'm super excited about the progress that we're making towards that goal. Thank you for having me, Krip and Vet.
Awesome. Luke, you are based in Dubai, actually, at Ripple's DIFC hub, which just expanded as the MEA regional headquarters. But as we all know, there are ongoing tensions and the uncertainty is pretty high in the Middle East. What drew Ripple, and especially obviously also you, to double down there now that the war is still ongoing?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, look, us being in Dubai and the United Arab Emirates is nothing new. We've been here since 2020. 6 years already. We're just doubling down on the new headquarters. So we're expanding our space, and that's just come naturally due to the fact that we have a number of clients and partners that now exist in the region. We see it as an extremely strategic part of the Middle East, but also Turkey and Africa and the wider MENA region. I think the DIFC have been exceptional hosts for us as well. We've partnered with them on a number of interesting projects and initiatives. And myself personally, I just see a huge future for capital markets in the Middle East, whether that's from sovereign wealth funds into even in more maturing traditional markets like equities via Abu Dhabi Exchange, CSD, and ADGM as a regulatory body. So all in all, I'm just extremely excited to grow the region and partnerships across the Middle East, UAE, but also wider. So Bahrain, Kuwait, Saudi, Africa, etc. There's a lot of growth. And actually, if you look at the United Arab Emirates, it's a relatively small country in terms of population. It's about the same size as London, I think 6 million people. But within not that far, there's millions and millions of people across Africa, North Africa, and the wider region.
And they are still not onboarded, I would say. It's ongoing process right now. And we already see this with Argentina, for example. I mean, that's the most prominent example right now for the XRPL. Whenever I check on RWA XYZ, I see the XRPL is tokenizing millions and millions and now even billions all the time. But the question or maybe misconception I hear most of the time from the community is that it's just represented. And in their view and their mind, represented doesn't mean anything, but it actually means something. And first, why is represented still important? And what does it mean for XRP? And how's the possible way looking to make it distributed?
Yeah, look, so I think frameworks from RWA.xyz are pretty useful. And the way that RWA.xyz uses this, which is the team that kind of came up with that standard between representative and distributed, essentially means the assets can be transferred in and out of cold storage or to other wallets, right? At the minute, they are holding a centralized custodian, I actually believe in Just Token's case, it's Ripple custody, so it's full stack. And Just Token have an account with Ripple custody where they store those assets on behalf of their corporate clients. That is purely a sum of regulation. There's no technical barrier. We could get those traded tomorrow, right? It's an IOU, I believe. The token standard that Alan's using is not on MPT, but you can immediately trade that to corporate wallets. The problem with that is the CMV, which is the equivalent of the SEC over in Argentina, don't allow for it on that type of asset at this point in time. It's essentially a forward contract on a megawatt of energy, so 1 megawatt of energy. And the reason why corporates buy that up front or allocate capital kind of 5 years in advance is because the price of energy fluctuates heavily, right? So they want to lock in a certain guaranteed rate. I think there is a way where all of those corporates have a XRPL wallet one day. It's not today on that specific asset class, but I think there's plenty of other opportunities and assets where that will be more of an opportunity. I think the forward contracts on electricity, we definitely expect to see them move into the distributed category at some point, 12, 24 months, without a doubt. And we expect that to grow and the utility to use on the ledger. But I mean, look, we've always been on a company that does things in the right way, right? We follow regulation first. It's very clear. We've been doing that since day one. We're not going to go against regulatory standards in a country just to make sure that it uses the XRPL in the way that we want it to. We'll follow the right regulatory controls. I also think, I've said this a few times before, but we were sued because XRP was claimed to be a security. If you look at a majority of the PMF and the traction on other chains today, it's equities, right? Like trading of more generalized equities. They're either wrappers or there's a couple of different models, right? But the one that's got the most traction right now is probably the Ondo wrappers. And so for us, we've just not been able to get comfortable to support that in terms of any commercial function yet. If we get clear regulation from the SEC, there may be a future pathway where we get a bit more comfortable to distribute those types of assets, as well as other models. So the securitized, the X stocks, there's multiple different players doing different models.
It really sounds like regulation is the last missing piece, right? Whenever I hear folks from Ripple talk, it's rarely like everyone is working on tech to make the XRPL better and more secure and make it possible to capture more utility. But it still feels like regulation is missing. It's still upcoming. We still need regulation to make the stuff that was already there many years ago actually work, right? It's regulation only, right? Most of the time.
I think the challenge is crypto and digital assets are like global distributed systems. Like it's a global market. The end state of most blockchains and the way that they're trying to go about execution is having one unified order book for every different type of asset or financial instrument. That doesn't work in essentially a puzzle piece of regulation. CNV in Argentina might say one thing. VARA over here might say another. MAS in Singapore might say something completely different. And so the interoperability across that or one unified order book, it just doesn't work. In Argentina, where we're seeing a ton of traction, they happen to be pretty conservative. I think rightfully so in some ways. Like it's new asset class, it's new technology. There's innovation that we need to get the head around. But I think there's just as I say, a patchwork of legislation globally that doesn't quite match the distributed nature of crypto. So I think it will come. I think the Clarity Act will obviously be a huge unlock there. And we expect that to come, I believe they expect that to come pretty soon. I won't comment too much on that. So that should provide, at least what I saw was when the previous legislation came out of the US administration, you see all of the other regulators race to catch up. And they say, we need to beat them. So I think I'm super excited. Once the Clarity Act comes out, I expect we'll get more meaningful regulation globally for digital assets and financial, more specifically, not just digital assets, financial instruments on blockchain rails. I think there's a pretty significant nuance between those two asset types.
Actually, look, from all of those RWAs and tokenized assets or tokenization in general, which one or which category do you see as maybe for you personally, actually, or two, the most interesting or with a lot of potential?
Yeah, so I think there's a misconception. I say misconception. A lot of people say this actually when you do the speeches and the round the houses at these events. But there's a misconception that blockchains bring new liquidity to these assets. It's very rarely the case normally. Liquidity just doesn't appear because you tokenize an asset. And so the things that are the most liquid have more generally been more successful actually on blockchain rails. So cash, to be quite frank, just straight up cash, stablecoins, arguably the most successful tokenized asset today. I would say then you get kind of closer to cash or cash equivalents, which are money market funds, and a little bit further down. I am specifically, in Ripple as an organization, are really focused on money market funds, and more specifically, repo use case around money market funds, so intraday repo. There's a concept within Ripple called Ripple Capital Markets, which is product GTM, essentially enabling tokenized money market funds to transfer. It's the stuff that we've been doing and you've been seeing probably publicly in terms of the Aviva Investors deal out of Europe, as well as DBS in Singapore. I think the end state would be an intraday repo facility across a number of these financial institutions globally, because that market is trillions of dollars. Like it's a really huge market. And I think we have a pretty good right to play there, because you don't need a ton of complex programmability or conditions. It's basically just settlement. It's just settlement between two financial institutions. So I think your answer was a very long-winded way to answer your question. Sorry about that. My answer is probably the closest things to cash are probably the things that are going to find the most product market fit first. Mm-hmm. So once you go cash, it'll be money market funds. And then other than that, we are seeing obviously a ton of signs of product market fit on equities. Like I am super excited about equities. I just don't think it kind of matches our risk tolerance at this point in time of where the market is. And I hope that we can get comfortable, or we get clear guidance and regulation around some of those assets to get them on chain.
Yep. Thanks.
And actually, just to dig into the equities part, it's not necessarily, it's the CSD, it's the clearing houses. It's normally a T+2 settlement of some of these equities, which is obviously, if you're using the XRP Ledger to bring that down to 3.5 seconds, cost of capital efficiency, huge. So there's a majority, like it's the CSD and the post-trade settlement process, not any of the matching, the order book. Like that's already extremely efficient.
Yeah, you talk to a lot of these institutions and people who deal with real value and money flow today, like in TradFi. When they hear about these capabilities with the XRP Ledger, and you just mentioned like 3.5 seconds, which is like basically instant, isn't that for them sort of, I would say, like not mind blowing, but in the sense of, hey, okay, this is like such a leap forward that it is so different to what we are currently doing. We need to maybe adjust to this, because typically like T+1, T+2, and now it's like 3.5 seconds. What do you mean?
Exactly. Yeah. Like, I mean, DVP, so delivery versus payment is like super new to a majority of these at the speed and settlement that the XRP Ledger can provide. Obviously, there's the technology aspect of 3.5 seconds, but then there's also the operational processes around that. And there's normally a ton of legacy operational processes that are just set up for T+2. So what I often find is these institutions don't want to go in and like destroy their existing business flows or models. They have to start in these sandbox environments. They have to test in an innovation center.
Yep.
It takes a little while to essentially get their ways of working around the settlement process up to speed. And so you're seeing a lot of theatre. And I was saying to Krippenreiter before we jumped onto the call, like I think we're starting to get towards the tail end of some of that innovation theatre and the early stage tokenization. And now a majority of our conversations are genuinely with like deep financial infrastructure and settlement capabilities that like 10, 100x what we have on chain today. I imagine we're not the only blockchain and ecosystem partner talking to these financial institutions, but I expect the hockey stick growth in tokenized assets to come. We've gone from, like, if you look at the XRP Ledger specifically, I think we had 50 million in RWAs technically January last year. We now are at 5.1 billion, I think, roughly, if you include the cash leg stable coins. So that's 100x growth in a year. Like, that is extremely fast. And so, like, I expect that 100x growth to continue at this trajectory. Like, it's going to get even bigger, 100x on the 5 billion easily, and the same across the wider industry. Like, and that's insane to get your mind around and think about, and be a team like committing to that and seeing this growth trajectory.
So we have it here from Luke, 500 billion.
Oh no!
But this is very exciting. Like I like, huge kudos, because I feel like capturing this momentum, as you say, like being in this hockey stick capturing, is now really key, right? You want to capture it as like all of those institutions want to come on chain, they're willing to talk, and so yeah.
Yeah, we're at that stage.
But they are not only talking to you about the XRPL, they are also talking about the products probably. So Ripple Treasury, Ripple Prime, Ripple Custody. And whenever the community hears about these products, they always have XRP in mind and what this could mean for XRP, basically. So how would you explain or link maybe all these products and XRP and the success stories that you have with tokenization? What does this mean basically for XRP?
Yeah, for sure. So, maybe I can give you a little bit of behind the scenes of how Ripple works anyway as an organization as well, right? I sit as the global leader partner success for RippleX specifically. So all of my time is spent around the XRP Ledger and XRP support, right? There's a couple of other partnerships teams within the business that go out and sell custody, go out and sell payments, go out and sell prime brokerage. I would say those teams will continue to do what they're doing and deliver the best commercial outcome to grow the revenue streams. At the same time, it's only in our interest to use the XRP Ledger, to use XRP wherever we can as a for-profit organization. And I'm already seeing a number of different use cases, like Ripple Treasury are already introducing stablecoin wallets and payments into their product. That's been a pretty rapid integration. And we're already seeing some first uptake around stablecoin transfers on XRPL rails, I believe, on the Ripple Treasury product. So I'm super excited that, distribution is everything, especially when you go and speak to these top-tier financial institutions. Distribution is all they need. And actually, when they go to most of the blockchains, they're not getting distribution. It might sound like it, but hey, a couple of $1 billion of distribution on a lending protocol is not meaningful unless you have the institutional side on the other end and the demand. So the prime brokerage will enable us to do that. The Treasury Services platform will enable us to do that by dog feeding into it.
And now it makes a lot. Actually, now it makes a lot of sense, because for me, the distribution is typically what people always talk about. As you say, it's the name of the game when you hear us Solana folks and Ethereum. This is where it now gets interesting, because Ripple Treasury and Ripple Prime, they have distribution from TradFi, and if you plug them to the XRP Ledger, now you can offer a distribution through the XRP Ledger to an audience that they couldn't get before. So now it makes sense, yeah.
And honestly, it's a lot easier. I say a lot easier. It's a harder sell because these organizations haven't used digital assets or stable coins. But it's a lot easier. I would much rather be going out and speaking to 100 financial institutions or large corporates that have never touched digital assets before than one that's spoken to 10 different crypto blockchains that are all trying to pitch them the same thing. You are the first person that gets in their door as a distribution channel for their product, and you are helping solve some problem for them. And they've never spoken to any other blockchain layer. You're just solving the problem, right? So obviously, I think XRPL should be pervasive, and we should be available on every tokenization engine, every tokenization platform, every centralized exchange. I've said this before, I think, to both of you guys. XRPL, XRP should be everywhere. At the same time, I want to be in places where others aren't, not just everywhere everyone else is.
Would you say that the institutional contacts that you have, do they value that the XRPL has fixed functions and only native primitives? Is this an easier sell for you compared to, let's say, Ethereum, where everything is a smart contract, and it's maybe even more complex to sell this because you have to tell them, hey, before you start with us, you first have to build your smart contract. And with XRPL, obviously, everything is API-based. It's easier, right?
I would say yes, depending on, yes, asterisks would be yes, depending on where they are on their adoption of digital asset journey, right? If they're already used to, if they are in that kind of innovation zone and they've already started working with Ethereum for smart contract development and they're familiar, it's actually a harder sell because they're kind of embedded in that smart contract nature. They already have the talent they've recruited specifically for that purpose. If they haven't, and if they're net new to digital assets, it's a huge sell. Simple integration, 3.5 seconds, API based. You don't have to do any custom development. You don't have to do any weird stuff. And especially now, right, with the compromises in DeFi, a lot of DeFi is in an existential crisis right now. I'm speaking to not just the institution. The institutions are all pretty bullish on it still, but other blockchains and salespeople around the other chains, etc., are definitely worried about the long-term health of DeFi ecosystems in Ethereum and in Solana and other general-purpose smart contract chains. And I don't think that means that the XRPL is immediately 100x safer than Solana or Ethereum, right? Because you have the fixed functions built into the chain and they're more battle tested, doesn't necessarily mean there's not going to be bugs in that code as well.
Exactly.
Like, I am extremely concerned more generally about the wider crypto industry and like the powerful new AI models that could compromise any bit of code in production software anywhere, right? Like, that's definitely something that keeps me up at night. I don't know about IO. So
we have to ask him.
We'll have to ask him. Yeah, you'll have to put him on next. Sorry, that was a bit of a tangent, but yes is the answer, depending on where they are in the journey.
Okay. But you said, like, before we started the recording, you said that you are hiring a lot of people. So at least from your point of view, you are more bullish than ever, right? And Ripple is more bullish than ever. The path is forward, even though we have all the DeFi hacks in the background happening.
Absolutely. So, like, yeah, that compromise and the potential compromises there is not the story for the industry. Like, the story for the industry right now is genuinely like it's growing up. It's coming closer to fundamentals. Institutions are genuinely using these tech stacks. Like, as I said, like, my conversations now with core financial infrastructure players of nation states. It's the clearinghouses of the world and settling trillions of dollars. They're going to make what we've just had look tiny. And so, in terms of bullishness, like, yes, Ripple was built, Ripple as an organization, but also the XRP Ledger was built for this use case over a decade ago, right? 13 years ago, I've seen posts, like, I've read up on all the law, the culture, the original posts. It's like, hey, I can't remember if it was Brito or one of the others was talking on a forum about having tokenized bonds and instruments on chain in one order book.
Yes.
And it's like, that was 13 years ago. How innovative is that? And so, like, we are there now, and like, we are riding the wave now. Like, I can't talk to the specific commercial deals, but there's some that I'm extremely excited about that will be that vision in size, in scale, distribution, massive wallets. It'll count as distributed on RWA Dexhead if that's what we all care about. I don't care if it does, but it would in this instance. Yeah. And that makes me super excited, right? Like, and as I say to cryptos before, I mean, we're hiring 5 more people from my team globally right now to double down on the opportunity. Like,
the work is everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, it's 24/7 in a global business, and it should be if you're in blockchain and crypto. Like, the chain's 24/7.
Yeah, let me ask you this, Luke. So, because you talk to a lot of them and various core financial institutions, what is the level of discussion that you have with them? Are they would you say they are crypto blockchain savvy somewhat, or rather not at all? Like, what is sort of the level that you are encountering when you have these discussions?
Over the last year or two, I would say more and more they understand the blockchain fundamentals. You are normally talking to someone that has come from industry and gone to work at one of these FIs, or has been in an FI but was always passionate about crypto, was playing with it on their side hobby, really truly understands. Like, some of these people are experts, right? Like, they know way more than me on individual parts of different chains or different asset types, etc. So I would not underestimate, like, traditional finance hasn't lasted however how long it has since the inception of humanity without being able to adapt to these new technology innovations, having people that are excited, smart, brilliant. And like, to be honest with you, I enjoy working with the people in the institutions, because it's really refreshing to go and speak to a financial institution and they actually get crypto. And I think you guys understand, like, there's only a few. Not everyone in the industry really gets crypto.
Yeah.
I can't say it any other way like that. But believe me, there's a lot of people in financial institutions that truly understand the fundamentals, the promise of it, and it's cool to talk to them now. Like, it's exciting.
So can we basically say a lot of the crypto native folks, maybe even crypto degens, found their way into the financial institutions and now work there? I would say there is a lot of these FIs have arms. Like, crypto is now like 10 years old, right? So a lot of people have grown up. Like, a lot of people have grown up over the last 10 years, and actually, they're like, maybe they were juniors at banks and they were playing around with crypto, and now they're in actually relatively meaningful decision-making positions after 10 years of working in the financial institution. So, like, they're playing around with crypto at college. They never really let go, and now you're a pretty senior, influential decision maker in an FI. There's more to those than you'd think. Like, One additional thing to this, because typically I see this, I guess that's also a self-reflection. You're very passionate maybe about a specific blockchain, maybe a few crypto and blockchains, right? And that ultimately makes that sort of for you the preferred choice, right? Mm-hmm. Even if sometimes it might not be necessarily the right very choice. Best, right? Exactly. So when you talk maybe even to these financial institutions, I imagine, let's say there is someone who comes from also crypto. Maybe he's a very different blockchain native person. Do you see that these people, regardless of their like strong personal preference of a specific crypto blockchain, are becoming more chain agnostic? That they say, hey, look, this is a multi-chain world and we try to be everywhere? Or do you see that they still sort of try to force themselves into maybe one corner? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get you completely. And actually, yeah, I mean, look, crypto is a tribalist, or has been very tribalist industry.
Yeah.
And yes, I do see that in decision makers. Like sometimes I think, hey, why are you choosing that chain? Oh, it's because you grew up on that chain. You were using that chain every day. That's probably why you've chosen it. Having said that, there's definitely more and more pragmatism. I would say the biggest thing that all of these FIs are looking for is distribution. So like I can't continue to say how much of an unlock prime the treasury is in our conversations, the custody, like being able to offer them an end-to-end solution and being able to offer them distribution of their assets into a long tail of actual FIs. That is hugely valuable. If we have the right assets, we've got to have the right high quality assets that institutions will actually buy. But it's like a huge unlock versus I guess any others, because it's always the same. And I think a lot of the FIs, they're not stupid, right? They parked a lot of these assets on, I keep saying, like they're incredibly smart people. They've parked a lot of these assets on blockchain rails. They've realized that there's not actually a ton of demand in size that's going to be meaningful to their revenue and bottom line. Mm-hmm. And normally it's just like the L1s or the foundations themselves parking capital in these assets as an incentive for them to come and deploy on that chain. And it's like, that's great, but that doesn't really scale. So now they're really starting to get under the hood and thinking, hey, where can I get distributed? Where is this actually going to be meaningful for my business?
Yeah.
And that's where I think we have a differentiator, because at the time when everyone started doing this RWA stuff, everyone was just deploying capital into parking assets just to get people to come and deploy on the chain, right? But it should be natural. It should be meaningful demand on the demand side.
This is where your pragmatism I really like, where you said like XRP everywhere, right? Yeah, it might not only like be on the XRP Ledger, but if it's everywhere, it's beneficial. And so that was like my thinking, and also for, let's say, financial institutions, or if you have tokenized assets, you want to be everywhere. Like the more distribution you can get, the better, right?
Exactly. It just depends on the tech lift, the resources, and again the regulatory. Like if I think even just for RLUSD on our side, right, we have to get NYDFS approval for every new chain that we want to issue RLUSD on. That takes, I don't know, I couldn't speak for Jack and the team, but I think it's anywhere from 3 to 6 months. And they're a highly dynamic and incredible regulator, but that does slow down deployments and delivery. And so I think that would be the same for the FIs, right? Especially like when you're doing securities as well, rather than a cash layer. I imagine it's even slower. If you're Franklin Templeton doing a money market fund, maybe it's a little bit easier. If you are, I'm just trying to think of a slightly more heavily regulated asset. It's harder to go out and do 50 chains and also manage that complexity and the fragmented liquidity, because the interoperability layer still isn't there. We've been talking about it for a while, but like we've talked about DeFi risk. There's risk in the bridging and interoperability layer way more at this point in time than even some of the DeFi primitives.
But XRPL is pretty much connected right now to everything, like through XLR and Squid. It feels like it's now actually connected to the broader scale of crypto, and also to Solana. And your background is actually Solana. So what I would like to know is, what do you think is something
controversial?
It's controversial, sure, but still, because we said it's we are not trying. At least we are trying. We all love XRPL, but we are trying to not lock in only on we don't want to do, but in the end it sometimes ends up like this. But I think it's always interesting to look to the other side and see if the grass is greener on this side and learn. So what I maybe would like to know from you, because your background is in Solana, is there something the Solana folks could learn from XRPL and vice versa? Like, is there something we can maybe adopt or learn from Solana as well and their ecosystem?
For sure, yeah. So I guess from them to us, the fixed function primitives, I actually think is a unique advantage that I think Toli himself on the Solana side has said there's like 5 meaningful smart contracts in that ecosystem that actually equate for like a majority of the value. And so like maybe they could enshrine some of those contracts into the base layer so that you don't have to have a custom one. So I actually think fixed functions are pretty interesting and they become more beta tested. So like, actually there's a bit from the technical architecture. I think we have managed to get extremely organized on go-to-market and growth. Like you're seeing that pay dividends around the tokenized assets. I think we've just overtaken Solana, if not a bit higher, and I expect that to continue. Like I think we're really organized in terms of bringing tier 1 financial institutions, working with them to enable distribution. And then on the Solana side to us, I would say the core thing for me has always been speed to market. And like, how can we innovate, operate quicker? How can we ship code faster? How can we iterate over the technology stack? I think it's a lot harder when you have fixed function, and every change, you're slower, but you're more robust when you bring features to market. So it's kind of like an architectural trade-off. So look, there's pros and cons to both technology stacks. I joined a layer 1 when I left my last startup because I felt like there's probably going to be 3 or 4 winners, similar to like cloud. And I thought a layer 1 is probably the closest thing to one of the hyperscalers when you come to blockchain. Like you have AWS, Google, Microsoft. You're probably going to get 3 or 4 emergent L1 blockchains. And I believe Ripple will be one of those. Like I think we have a meaningful chance, especially well capitalized, executing against a narrative that is now really in our favor and in a market that's like growing rapidly. So yeah, I'm super excited.
In this growing market, what was your first success story? Like not only the first, but maybe also the biggest, the one that made you so excited to maybe even say, I will never leave the crypto ecosystem, or maybe even the XRPL ecosystem.
XRPL ecosystem.
For sure.
So there's 2 things. Yeah, I mean, there's 2 things I think that I'm seriously proud of, I guess, in my time in crypto. One, from my personal companies. The first one I raised venture capital and failed. And it was super painful. Like raising VC money, failing, having to tell everyone, all your employees, that you failed and that you've run out of capital, you need to move on. That was super tough. I then set up a Solana validator that was pretty profitable and managed to turn it around and kind of come back, and then managed to get a job at Ripple, which is like a huge success for me. So like I was pretty rock bottom in crypto. Like I'd quit like a pretty good consulting job, and we managed to turn it around. So that was like one personal great, because I had a kid as well at that time. Around the same time the startup failed, I had my first kid. So it was a pretty critical time in my career. The second thing for the XRPL and XRP ecosystem that Vet is probably aware now is like I was deeply involved with the transition from the old foundation into the new XRP Ledger foundation, more by coincidence. And I have a lot of thanks to the XRPL Labs team for being instrumental to that as well. But we moved a lot of the core assets from the old XRP Ledger foundation into the new XRP foundation. We set up that entity from scratch. It took a long time, but I think we built that with a robust governance process, and we've got some incredible stuff in there. And then we've got Vet. Winding him up. But so I'm super excited about the future of that foundation and that organization and that. And I think there's going to be a lot of things that we can do. Like for us to have 1 million views on an AMM amendment post, dude, you nailed it. That's exactly what I see. Like a foundation's job is to gain attention for the network, build more community members, participation, and to grow the robustness in technology. And like, I couldn't have asked for a better start. If I zoom out, when like we're sitting dreaming about this, architecting it between XRPL Commons, XRPL Labs, ourselves. So yes, thank you for your work and continue to do that great stuff.
It was a genius move, actually, because we're talking about AMM curves. Like, there is nothing more technical than this, and you got 1 million views on it. I'm still
incredible.
in kind of denial that this is even possible, but you delivered. You even over delivered, in my opinion. So crazy work.
It didn't felt like it when it started, but
yeah. But
and like the Riddlers are part of the community.
Yes,
right? It is.
Yes. You should lean in and support them. Like it's great. Like if the Riddlers all give up tomorrow, that's not going to be good for the ecosystem. So I'm super supportive of that part. And every holder of XRP, every developer is important, and we should value them all.
Agree.
Yeah, it's a diverse ecosystem. Like we have many people in the ecosystem, not just the developers. It sometimes feel like everything is based on tech, but it's not like this. We have the tech people, the developers. We have the financial people, the sales people, holders.
Everybody.
Even more.
Even the riddlers, and everyone is part. So it would be weird for the foundation to not also lean into the riddle part. And what's important for me, at least, you didn't sell any, like, you didn't say in 1 year something great will happen, or you said in let's say a week the price of XRP will be gigantic or something. You just said that tomorrow the day will be great, and that's like it happened.
And then you followed up. Exactly. Right. You follow up with a highly technical core improvement to the ledger that's fundamental. That's what made it so classy.
Thank you.
If it had followed up with like a general partnership announcement, like the work I work on, sorry guys, it wouldn't have been as meaningful or impactful, but you followed up with a deeply technical enhancement to the ledger. So I was super
I specifically for AMMV2, I wanted to do it separately, but because it just fits here, I want to give a huge shout out to Luke, because he was actually the first one who brought this on GitHub as a improvement we need for the ledger, and then Roman from XRPL Commons continued that, and then Dennis collaborated as well to
Dennis made it. He made it 100 times better. So much better.
I'm just saying, kudos to everybody. So
it's like it's such a better architecture than me like vibe coding text. Like
the idea was born. The idea was born. And no, I'm happy that it is where it is right now, and that we continue like full throttle push with everybody to move the ecosystem forward, because and it's a goal for everyone who is at the XRP Ledger.
Exactly. And sorry, I know we wanted to closely wrap up, but I can't get over how important that passive liquidity layer, so the ability to park stablecoins into the XRPL, is going to be. Like all of these tokenized assets that we're bringing on chain, they're going to need a cash leg to come in and out of at some point. And having more RUSD, more USDC, I don't really care, more any stable asset, XRP in and out, will be great. Like so, concentrated liquidity and the stable swaps, super excited for, and super supportive of.
To this, we see like very impressive RLUSD numbers on the XRP Ledger. It's growing, it's fantastic. Sure. And this is sort of where the distribution and partnerships I really saw like click with what you did as well, and together, of course, the RLUSD team. But for example, RLUSD was available on Binance, right? On the XRP Ledger. Well, they need liquidity, right? So they minted RLUSD on the XRP Ledger. That means like liquidity coming to the XRPL. So this is how you can, with bringing XRP and XRP Ledger technology everywhere, you sort of can grow like liquidity as well, and that was really cool to see.
Yeah, you end up with just naturally occurring, because like there could be arbitrage opportunities, for example, between the XRP Ledger DEX availability in Binance and liquidity. So in terms of solving that problem, fundamentally, I think all credit to the RLUSD team. I've been extremely vocal about it internally that we need this, but the RLUSD team have been doing a majority of the actual work, and they've solved for almost every centralized exchange. We're not far off. I'd imagine completing all of the major top 20, top 50, whatever, in 12 to 18 months. Right, it's extremely rapid progression, and so the next stage for me is definitely seeing more liquidity across those venues. You needed availability before you can solve liquidity, so you can come in and out. There's different venues to trade in, as you mentioned.
What I'm looking forward to is really for Ripple to not only double down on Ripple USD, but maybe potentially also at some point more stable coins. I know like this is probably controversial because I don't know if Ripple has ever covered this, but going back to tokenization and the AMM curves, since we get stable swap as an invariant, we will be able to do FX markets on the XRPL AMM. But it doesn't make sense to do let's say Ripple USD XRP on the stable swap invariant AMM. Yep. So what we want actually is something like Ripple USD, Ripple Euro. And on this, maybe I'm just hinting at it. Are there plans for Ripple Euro as well to make it a more complete setup in terms of stablecoin issuance on XRPL?
I, as you can imagine, I won't answer that exact question. I think primarily because that's Jack's McDonald's strategy and direction on the RLUSD team. What I will say is that within the RippleX domain and team that I've worked with, there is eight non-US dollar stablecoins on chain today. Liquidity is not huge in some of them. I expect they will become a more meaningful part of the XRPL ecosystem. Like the fundamentals are there. We've just got to grow the use case and utility. Like it's the same for all of those. Like Euro, you mentioned, we've got SocGen's Euro on the XRP Ledger today. We have Schumann Financial, a great team, super cool startup execution team. They've issued a Euro on the XRPL. Yeah, exactly. So they've got two. So there's 2 Euros on chain today. The challenge is meaningful liquidity and distribution for those as well. And I think that will become a lot easier for those teams now that RLUSD has paved the way for XRPL IOUs, XRPL MPTs into those other venues. That was why I was so passionate about it. It's going to be the Trojan horse to bring these other assets onto other venues. So I think if I look back I think I joined around 2023, November 2023. Like the progress that we've made in 2 and a bit years since I've been here, 2.5 years, is incredible. And it's just I see that again. I can't say enough. 100xing from here. Mm-hmm. It's a continuous growth curve, and I'm super excited about it. And it's weird because we're in a bear market. Krippen rung it up. The macro environment doesn't feel great. I completely understand. I've been through a couple of bear markets. My last startup, the first startup I talked about, died during the first bear market I was in, and it is horrible, but the fundamentals are so far distracted from where the price is on any of these digital assets at this point in time. So super excited for the future.
Yeah, me too. Super excited. And maybe to wrap this up, even on X, you always say the job is not done yet. And I love this so much because it's not only about tokenization, it's about everything on XRPL. So the obvious next question is, when is it done? What needs to happen?
Trillions on chain.
Why not quadrillions?
Clip that.
No, yeah. I mean, look, it's a constant state of progression, and we just got to turn up every day and do better every day. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you, Luke. Thank you, Vet. See you next time, and hope to invite you again for the next show sometime in the future. So thank you, guys. Ciao, ciao.
Bye-bye.